Why build a range at your house? Because it's awesome, that's why. Who doesn't want a range at their house? So before, we had to drive an hour and a half minimum. We couldn't have a range at our house. We lived in your normal neighborhood that you see most people living in, right? Cookie cutter houses, all that stuff, neighbors. No way to put a range in there. But now that we moved, we've got about, we've got a few acres, we've got some good neighbors, and we can put a range in. So for us, before, we had to drive about an hour and a half outside of Clarksville here just to even get to a place where we can shoot, you know, more than one round at a time. You can draw your gun, you can move and shoot or anything like that. That was outdoors. Nothing's available. So an hour and a half one direction, that's a lot, especially if there's traffic, because there's usually traffic because Nashville can't keep up with all the growth and all the out-of-state people and everything else. No big deal, but for all you out-of-state people moving to Nashville and Tennessee, please don't vote for what you left, okay? Other than that, so what does it take to build a range? Well, first, we gotta talk about the dimensions, the size. We gotta talk about what's gonna go into this range, the gravel and everything else associated with it. So our range over here, we're pretty excited about it, and like anything, it's turned out a little bit bigger than we initially intended, but we're excited about it. So what do we need size-wise in the range? Well, originally we said we wanted minimum 25 yards deep or meters or whatever. It's about 75 feet and 20 yards wide. So that's what we said originally. And then we also knew that we needed drainage going in here on the sides, which we'll talk about in a minute, and a culvert too that's going in. But size-wise, minimum what we needed. Well, you guys look back here, we're actually extending that just a little bit where he's at. So if you guys look where the mini excavator is, you see that sapling right behind it on the left? That's where the back of the berm's gonna be. So he's digging this out a little bit more, and that's actually gonna give us about 35 yards. So we had another 10 to it. It's gonna be about right at a little over 100 feet. And then width-wise, yeah, we got like 25 yards width. So we actually went wider too. So we got about, it's gonna be about 35 yards deep by 25 yards total. So this guy's digging all that stuff out, and you guys can see, and actually, we actually blew the engine on one of the Bobcats. Not we, they did, running them, but they blew one of the engines on the Bobcats, that skid steer. So we got another one in here too. So that should be the size of the range. So why did we want it that size? Well, in class, most of the time with a pistol, the farthest distance we're shooting is about 25, right? But you go to these competition bays and we see how big they are. Some are smaller, some are bigger, but it just gave us multiple options. So kind of ideally what we want to be able to do is have two parts to the range here, so we can set up one kind of drill or stage or something like that on one side and another drill or stage on the other. And then we'll put other stuff in here like walls we'll talk about in a minute. But that's kind of the size of it. And I have absolutely no idea what the distance is gonna be shooting from corner to corner, but I'm guessing that'll be a little bit farther. So we might be able to get some more distance out of that too. So the back of our range is gonna stop right here. You guys can see, right? But we still have a little bit more grass going back that I'm not gonna show you because my house is back here and I don't want you weirdos showing up to my house, right? Sorry, man, but it's a private range. Y'all ain't coming. So with that said, we can get a little bit more if we need to. We can actually go back to my kids' playhouse, which is honestly where I sit to hunt. Go back there, shoot off of that if we need to, off the back rail, but we're gonna try and keep it all right here. We can get a little bit more distance out of it if we need to. But that graveled area will be 35 deep by 25 wide yards. So for drainage on the range, we're gonna have a little bit of a pitch to the range so that water runs off. But near these side berms, we obviously gotta have a little ditch, right? I think there's another word for it, but I can't remember. Honestly, I'm just telling you what the contractors told me. They know more about this than I do. I trust him. Wes seems like a good dude. This is his foreman up here working right now, but former veteran, good guy. So he basically said, hey man, you're gonna want one down here. I was like, yeah, I thought so, but you know. So we're gonna dig this ditch out, they're gonna put that dirt up on the top and help build up these side berms a little bit more. And then that's gonna bring this water, run it all the way down so we don't have anything pooling on the range. With any project you're gonna do, it's probably gonna cost more money. It's probably gonna take longer than you thought. And you're probably gonna run into some obstacles. Well, so did we, right? Or at least we thought we did. So I was talking to the foreman the other day. He comes by and he says, hey man, take a walk with me. Feel this ground's real hard? I was like, yeah, I feel it. He's like, walk over here. Walk over there. He's like, feel like your feet are sinking in? I was like, yeah, this sounds expensive. What does that mean? He's like, well, I don't know yet, but whatever it is, it could be a sinkhole, it could be an underground spring, it could be an old well that was covered up, it could be a lot of things. But whatever it is, we need to figure it out, we need to cover it up. We can't just leave it. It's like, all right, cool. well, nothing we can do now. Might as well get after it. So the owner called and he said, luckily, hey man, nothing's wrong. We figured it out. It's actually fine. We called in somebody else that came and looked at it, so you're good to go. Thankfully, nothing happened. But if it did, that could have cost us a couple $1,000s potentially, because I got to dig that out, fill it with concrete or something, and then fill it back up and make all that stable. So we got lucky, but you might not if you're building a range. So I suggest do what we did. We budgeted a little bit extra money on top of it, just in case something like that happened. So if you look over my left shoulder, my left, your right, to the right side of that skid steer, just right there was where that area was. Luckily, no issues, right? So we got pretty lucky on that. But for a lot of people, you're probably gonna run into something. So plan for it. And luckily, we budgeted a little bit extra money to take care of it in case something did. But thankfully, nothing happened. We're good to go. Last time we filmed was about a month or two ago. And since then, we've had a number of issues, right? We had a lot of weather and we broke 2 machines. One machine, engine blown. Well, and then they tried to fix it, but they sent the wrong part and they had to send that back and blah, blah, blah. And they got a second machine out here, another skid steer. Blew the track off that, couldn't fix it. So we had to get those 2 out of here. And on top of that, we had a lot of weather. We had snow and the machines actually got stuck. We had rain. We could not get back out here to smooth this out and get all the gravel put down and finish up the last of the ditch work. But what we did get done in that time was the pitch. If you look at the range, everything's gonna be dug out here. You'll see in a minute. The pitch in the back and downrange is a little bit higher than it is uprange where we're standing. So we want that water to run back, then we want it to run out back here towards that draw or that little dry creek bed that's behind me. So if you look behind you, the land's a little bit higher and it sits on an incline. So it naturally comes down this way. So what we did was we had to put in a culvert. And where the cameraman Tom is standing, he's actually down in that ditch. So water's gonna come through here, go into the culvert, then right back out to where we want. Last little thing we gotta do here, just gotta dig out a little bit of that. We're gonna put a screen over top to protect it so that not too much gunk gets in there. And other than that, this is pretty much done. The last few things we gotta do, finish the ditches on the side of the range, flatten it out a little bit more and smooth it out, then just lay that gravel.
Well, at this point, we're at number 7 in our delays. And yes, we're really happy about that. We started this in December. So we knew there was gonna be some delays and stuff going on, but we didn't quite expect this. So to kind of keep you in the loop, Friday, today's Sunday, it's the 19th of March. Friday, they're supposed to deliver gravel. Well, for whatever reason, they decided they just weren't gonna do it that day after we confirmed all week and had everything set up. So Saturday comes around, they're supposed to deliver it yesterday. What the f? Then yesterday they said, oh, actually, we don't have that kind of asphalt. We have to get it from somewhere else, and they're closed. So today's Sunday, Wes had already rented the equipment, so he's out here just getting some of the trenches done and kind of smooth it out. So when they do bring the gravel, hopefully this year, we'll actually be able to put it out. It'll be this year, or I'm gonna lose my damn mind. And that's where we're at right now. So hopefully we can get this smoothed out, we'll be good to go. We want that inch of gravel. That's important for us because we don't want the crush run just to sink into the dirt. We want to have a nice little layer underneath. It's something that Josh Froelich did up in Minnesota or Wisconsin or wherever he's at. And then they put the crush run on top. So for us, we want that gravel because if we do grass, well, there's a whole host of other issues with that. And I don't feel like mowing it. This should last a lot longer.
We're finally done. After 5-6 months, Tom, something like that, I think. Yeah. So I think we started like December, January, and we're finally finished this thing. And it's June 7th today. So they just finished on Sunday, which is 4. So the 4th. June 4th, they finally finished it. So they got the gravel down, everything else, and they kind of leveled out the range itself behind us. So they put 1 inch of crushed asphalt down first to give it a nice solid base so the crush run on top doesn't completely wash away. And because the ground, when they leveled it and did all that and everything else, it really kicked it all up and made it real loose. So 1 inch of crushed gravel first, and then or crushed asphalt, excuse me, and then on top of that, they put 2 inches of crush run. So all we need now is a good rain to kind of settle it and kind of wash out some of the excess on top, and now we're good to go. So now, the thing that everybody's been waiting for, the cost. So how much does this cost? Well, I don't usually like talking about money and everything else, but I think it's pretty important because I was looking around online trying to figure out how much rangers cost, and it's really difficult to find. They tell you how they do it, they tell you that they built a range, but they don't tell you what to expect money-wise. So we're gonna cover two costs. One was the actual excavation work, and the other one was the cost of the gravel itself. So the excavation work was about $6,500, right around there. So what they did was, if you guys can see that line back there where the weeds are starting to grow through the berm, that top part of that soil, that's where it was, that little darker line running right through the middle. So they had to dig all this out as we kind of built it into a hill. We had it at 25 by 25 and we had them pushing an extra 10 yards. So that cost a little bit more money, but total that was $6,500 to dig all this out, put in the culverts, right? Dig out that, put in a culvert, dig the swaths or little mini ditches on the side and everything else, $6,500. Then comes the gravel. And we actually got the gravel maybe a little bit cheaper than you might because the contractor knew a guy and blah, blah, blah. So we ended up moving somewhere else and getting a little bit, the same price instead of more expensive. But the gravel cost us $3,700. $3,700 for 1 inch in crushed asphalt and 2 inches of the crush run. So total, $10,200. That's a lot of money, dude. So, but now we finally have a range in our backyard, which we've been saving up for a long time. So it's gonna make it a lot easier for us. And now Tom, behind the camera, has to drive to me to do filming, which I'm super happy about. That I don't have to drive and get stuck in Nashville traffic all the time. Tom, that's your problem, bro, not mine.
Don't rub it in.
So this is all done, and that's the cost, right? So what's next? So what's next is that little pallet right there. Not really a small pallet, but that's got target stands in it. It's got steel, AC zone steel. It's got, I think, 6 poppers, 3 minis and 3 normal size or large ones. And we got 1 swinger in there too. So looking at all, I think it's all in there. I don't know, we'll find out, Action Target. But we appreciate Action Target for sending it, so we'll get that unpacked and get it out. So the next thing, unpack it, set up the steel, and shoot our first couple drills. Other than that, that's probably what it's gonna take to build a range. And we hope that you guys don't run into as many problems as we did, but like my friend Garrett from Cogworks said, everything's gonna take 3 times longer than you anticipate. It's gonna cost 3 times as much money. It's gonna be 3 times as many obstacles. And ever since he said that, I'm like, dude, you need to change that to like 5 or 6 maybe. But other than that, we hope it goes better for you. Anyway, let's get at it. Let's break this steel out and let's enjoy it.